Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today, and over the past weeks I've had a lot of comments and questions on Teotihuacan in Mexico, and I have not talked about that ancient site in quite a while, and I think some sites are very important and very ancient, so they deserve to be talked about, especially when I have quite a new audience here. But I think we'll go in and take a look today, and probably the most important fact of Teotihuacan is that if anybody tells you they know who built this ancient complex, I'd say they are lying to you, because the truth is we have no clue who built Teotihuacan. Now, some say the Aztecs built this place, but clearly the Aztecs tell us that this place was already in ruins when they came upon it, and I'll jump over to a website and shows you pretty much what the Aztecs came upon. But this is the Pyramid of the Moon down here, the Pyramid of the Sun, and the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, the Feathered Serpent up here, and there has been underground tunnels found under these that are really symbolic and have to do with creation, and I'll get to those in just a second here. But why don't we go down and take a peek here first. Now here is Teotihuacan looking up at the Pyramid of the Moon with this mountain behind it. And is that built here for a reason? The Avenue of the Dead, if you follow that up past the pyramid, it goes to the top of this mountain. Well, that is something that definitely could be in play here. But the Pyramid of the Moon here, and then over here is the Pyramid of the Sun. And that's quite a complex, especially when we don't know who built this original structure. People say the Mayans had something to do with this, but the Mayans came along later in history. They take it back to the Olmecs, and the Olmecs is just kind of a hazy mystery. Who were the Olmecs? When exactly did they reign? And were the Olmecs inheritors of this original complex? And do the original builders go so far back in history we just have no clue? Well, that's kind of the way it feels with Teotihuacan. Here is a look down the Avenue of the Dead, looking to the south. And if you line this place up, so it is not lined up to true north, and that is kind of one of the mysteries of Teotihuacan. Now, this is Perron Rants, and I thought this was well written. I will leave the link below. It says, who built Teotihuacan? It says, laying in the valley of Mexico, actually in the sub-valley, lays a magnificent splendor known as Teotihuacan. Its zenith may have been in the first millennium AD, with a population of perhaps 125,000 or more people, and that would have made it the sixth largest city in the world at the time. Now, as far as the builders and the time period that this city was built, it's just all a bunch of theories, and nobody has really come up with a reasonable explanation. It says it is believed that this city was built somewhere around 100 BC, and it may have been lived in up to the 7th or 8th centuries AD. It also appears that its major monuments were sacked and systematically burned around 550 AD. We used to think that this magnificent city was built by the Toltecs, but it existed before the Toltecs. The Florentine Codex identifies the builders as the Toltecs, but that culture flourished, about 1,000 years ago, so that city was already ancient when the Toltecs were around. It says, by the time the Aztecs arrived in the Valley of Mexico, Teotihuacan was already in ruins and burned. Archaeologists now refer to the city's builders simply as Teotihuanaco. It says, we don't know who built the city, nor do we know who systematically set it on fire. It's been speculated that Teotihuacan was inhabited by the Nahu, the Utami, or the Totonac ethnic groups, but in fact, we don't know. It says the Aztecs used the term Toltec to refer to craftsmen of the highest degree, so that may be why the Florentine Codex and others say the city was built by the Toltec, thus referring to highly skilled craftsmen and not to the Toltec culture itself. That seems reasonable, but the Toltecs were around long after the city was already in ruins. Still other researchers believe that Teotihuacan was built by people known as the Totonac There is evidence that some people who lived in the city came from other areas, including the Mixtec, the Maya, and the Zapotec people. But were they the builders? Here's a look at Teotihuacan, and here, down here, this is what they theorize it may have looked like in very ancient times with water filling the ground plaza, and that is speculation, but I find that interesting speculation. And down here is what these places look like when they were come upon about 200 years ago. People thought these were just hills. These are what the pyramids look like, covered in serious growth and bushes and trees due to sedimentation. 1905 picture of Teotihuacan. Looks like some of these places were starting to get uncovered a little bit by that time. So this place was buried and in ruins, and this is the Avenue of the Dead. Now here is a look at the Pyramid of the Moon at the end of the Avenue of the Dead. Now I'm just going to play just a short 2-minute clip from the late 70s show In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, where he talks a little bit about Teotihuacan. Here you go.
Near Mexico City sprawl the sun-baked ruins of Teotihuacan, largest and most mysterious city of ancient America. Dominating its avenues are huge pyramids. Here, the enigmas begin. Facing west, the largest pyramid of Teotihuacan was dedicated to the sun god. Only half the height of the largest Egyptian pyramid, the Pyramid of the Sun nevertheless covers the same immense area, almost 600,000 square feet. If the builders had contact with Egypt, no one can say. Recently, an ancient tunnel was discovered under the Sun Pyramid. It leads to a natural cavern where only a few pottery shards have been found. To Mexican Indians, caves symbolize Mother Earth. Some archaeologists believe the cave was the legendary birthplace of the pyramid builders' tribe. Its discovery has fueled speculation that somewhere in the huge bulk of the pyramid are hidden chambers, perhaps even a tomb. 300 meters from the Sun Pyramid is a group of ancient holes forming a triple cross. From this spot, on June 21st, the longest day of the year, the sun can be seen to rise over the pyramid's third notch, precisely marking the summer solstice. Of the people who built Teotihuacan, little is known. To their origin, we have scarcely a clue.
Now, one of the more amazing discoveries at Teotihuacan came, I believe, a couple years ago when mercury was discovered under the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent at the south end of the Avenue of the Dead. And here is a look at what that tunnel under this pyramid looked like and where it came off of. Now it says here, mercury is often found in Mesoamerican tombs in the form of a powdery red pigment called cinnabar, but its liquid form is extremely rare. So it was with some surprise that Sergio Gomez, an archaeologist with Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, discovered traces of liquid mercury this year in 3 chambers under the early 3rd century AD Feathered Serpent Pyramid in the ancient city of Teotihuacan. And these dates, early 3rd century AD, I think the dates of these goes back thousands of years, at least the original structures. And these are reported, these pyramids here, there is reports that there are pyramids on top of earlier pyramids here, just as there are in other parts of the world. It says, since uncovering the entrance to the tunnel leading beneath the pyramid in 2003, Gomez has found 5 underground chambers containing thousands of artifacts, including many thought to be offerings, such as skeletons of large jaguars and wolves. Other objects, such as figurines made of jade from Guatemala and seashells from the Caribbean, indicate how far Teotihuacan's influence extended. In addition to helping maintain the mercury in a liquid form, the humidity and lack of oxygen in the underground chambers have preserved plant seeds and fragments of something that might be human skin. And that's a little disturbing. But what was in the people's minds who built these original structures that obviously put in tunnels representing the underworld, same as you see in Giza? And there seems to be quite a few things similar to the Giza pyramids. The base of the Pyramid of the Sun being equal to the Great Pyramid, and also the three pyramids here being in representation of Orion's belt. Two pyramids in a line and a smaller one offset. You can't ignore that. But going back to the article here, it says Gomez believes that Mercury is part of a representation of the geography of the underworld, the mythological realm where the dead reside. The silvery liquid was probably used to depict lakes and rivers, and that is pretty remarkable. They were using mercury to represent lakes and rivers, and it all had to do with creation, and they put stars on the ceiling of these tunnels. They put pyrite, little bright crystals, so when you had lights down there or torches, those stars lit up in a representation of the night sky. And what was in the minds of these people? I think it goes back thousands of years to a story we haven't even figured out yet. Now, there is also a tunnel found under the Pyramid of the Moon here, and I'll display a clip by a channel who makes their videos shareable, and I'll leave the link below.
Experts from Mexico's History and Anthropology Institute and the National Autonomous University have discovered a 10-meter deep tunnel that likely connects the plaza and the Moon Pyramid in Teotihuacan. The images show a filled tunnel at 10 meters below the surface that goes from the plaza to the Moon Pyramid, but more data is needed to confirm, said geophysics specialist Dr. Denise Argote Espino. She added that if confirmed, the tunnel would prove that the people of Teotihuacan reproduced the same tunnel pattern associated with their largest monuments, such as the Sun Pyramid and the Quetzalcoatl Temple, in a sort of emulation of the underworld. Dr. Argote said that this find would help bring a better understanding of Teotihuacan, its socio-political and ritual organization, and how up to 100,000 inhabitants, mostly from other regions, live there. The next step is to explore the tunnel. The exploration of the tunnel at the Sun Pyramid was lost after it was discovered in the 60s that it may have been looted and closed in the 16th century by the Mexicas. Notimex.
Now, I was going to set a little tour to music like I do a lot, but I think I'll just show you around here and talk because I don't have time to get too fancy here with this one. I make videos in my spare time, and my spare time is not that much these days here, but here's a little bit of the stonework. Very impressive, and this place just has a really cool feel to it, if you ask me. This is very, very ancient. So ancient we really can't put our fingers on who built it. But it almost has a futuristic look to it, almost to me. Something out of a movie. Now here is a look on top of one of those structures that appears to have 5 levels in the stairways that surrounds the central plaza here. And you see here, there are rocks just kind of built up on top of this. And I find that pretty interesting, but reports have layers on top of layers in these pyramids, and that seems to be the story. When cultures come along, they seem to put their stonework on top of much more ancient structures. But how much of that was done actually here? Well, I guess that is all up for speculation. Now here we are on top of the Pyramid of the Sun. There's the Pyramid of the Moon, Avenue of the Dead, and then down here is the Feathered Serpent Pyramid. But as you see here, this Pyramid of the Sun has the same base as the Great Pyramid, pretty much. But that is one very impressive structure. Give you a little 3D view of it here. The Pyramid of the Sun here, very impressive structure. And that is what it looks like. And one thing that I'm just going to mention here, it looks like a symbol of a man here with the stairways, and then his arms stretched out and his head up here. Well, that is actually a Far Eastern symbol for literally stairway to heaven, and heaven being your mind. I just wanted to point that out. Now this is looking out from the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent, and there appears to be a massive courtyard. Some ceremonies, maybe ball games, were played out here in very ancient times, but this was definitely used for ceremonial purposes with people gathering. That's obvious. But this pyramid here is obviously a little different than the others, not as big. Here you can clearly see where stuff was built over. And it seems people a long time ago, when they put their work on top of an ancient structure, the structure in a way became theirs. But here you see some glyphs and some reliefs, and clearly different stages of construction. I just wanted to point that out. But this one appears to be very ancient, just as the whole complex does here at Teotihuacan. Now here we are actually in the museum here at Teotihuacan on Google Street View, and it just gives you a look at some of the things that were found around Teotihuacan. Little statues, probably many cultures represented in the artwork and the things that were found here. But I think that's pretty cool when you can go on Google Earth and take a little tour through a museum. And if you want to check that out on Google Earth, I think it's pretty fascinating. Pretty cool when you can do it sitting in your own living room. But that just gives you a little look at some of the things found at Teotihuacan in the museum here. Pretty cool. Now here's a little look at kind of the very southern end of the Avenue of the Dead, and the further south you go, the more of these structures are pretty much buried still. There is a lot going on here besides the pyramids. But here is a look from the very southern, pretty much southern part of the Avenue of the Dead, looking up towards the Pyramid of the Moon. Now I just think this is a fascinating place. There are similarities with Egypt. And one thing that has been found here is mica. And the nearest mica is in Brazil, 3,000 miles away. I think that should be brought up, and other people have said that these pyramids, the way they are laid out, look like a circuit board kind of. And mica here, what was the true purpose originally? Is this coming from a time period that goes so far back in history we just can't really wrap our heads around it? Well, that's the way it appears to me. Now another connection to Egypt, besides the size and Orion's belt and the underworld symbology, is the cocaine mummies in Egypt. Where did that come from? Were the people from this area of the world making trade excursions to the land of Kush? Well, that's all up for speculation. But it seems like an ancient name for this place was the place where men became gods. And that kind of fits also into Egypt, because it seems like a long time ago, the pyramids of Giza, there was some sort of initiation process going on there. I just needed to point that out also. But I think I'm going to take you out with a little clip from a Manley Hall video I did a couple years ago. And this is Manley Hall talking. Manley Hall is one of those guys where I agree with a lot of things he says and some things I don't agree. But I thought this is excellent what he had to say about Teotihuacan, and I'm going to take you out with a little clip from that. So here you go. Here's Manley Hall. Hope you enjoyed this video. You all have a very nice day.
It was not until the rise of the Tarascan peoples and other groups in the Great Plateau of Mexico, until they had reached a certain culture level, they could not have produced these monuments. They have to be recent. So you then turn to the Mexican archaeologist and you say, what is your opinion? And he will say, well, we do not really know either. But from our researching and from our thought, we suspect that these monuments are older than the American school believes. We would like to suspect that these monuments might go back 1,000, maybe 2,000 years before the Christian era, and that they were built by peoples who preceded the historical group in the Valley of Mexico. This assumes, of course, the existence of a pre-Aztec culture in this area. And according to the German viewpoint, the existence of such a culture is intimated in the remaining records of the Nahua peoples, for they distinctly seem to imply that these monuments were ancient at the time when they first reached the Great Plateau of Mexico. So the German scientist is inclined to be a little more generous. Then you turn to the Mexican scientist, who actually is in a strange way in the best condition and position to understand the achievements of his own people. He has had his ear to the ground for a long time, is well aware of the legendary and lore that are definitely parts of the descent of our records in this region. And with a typical Mexican shrug of the shoulders, he will say, we do not know when they were built, senor. It is our opinion that perhaps they were built 8,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. But we are convinced that they are far more ancient than has been suspected. And that the only reason why the present fashion is to insist that they are recent is because our whole concept of culture is based upon the concept that man's more recent state indicates a superior attainment. Therefore, that the man of the dawn of time could not have produced such monuments. Our picture of him does not permit him to have such ingenuity and advancement. But remember that we have no picture of this man except the one we ourselves have invented, so that we are really locked by our own invention. We have come to a conclusion, and we have tried to make the facts fit into the conclusion. In other words, we are reasoning